Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user ADR1452. My 26 female boyfriend's 28 male sister-in-law, 25 female, gave him a plushie for Christmas and didn't make one for anyone else. I just want to start by saying that I realize I might be totally wrong and insecure in this situation. I just really want another perspective or something because I just can't help the fact that this bothers me and I am admittedly feeling jealous. I have been with my boyfriend for 6 months at this point. He has 4 siblings, 3 brothers and 1 sister, and we are the shortest relationship in the family. 3 of his siblings are married and another in a very long-term relationship. I think the shortest relationship in the bunch is 5.5 years, so I will admit I am a bit intimidated and insecure there. For Christmas this year, his sister-in-law made him a homemade plushie of this little blue baby dinosaur looking character from his favorite video game. The plushie is of amazing quality and he absolutely loved it, but she didn't make one for any of the other boys who also love the game just as much. Not even her husband. In fact, she went out of her way to give it to him without his other brothers around except for her husband. Her husband was just as excited for her to give his brother the gift as she was, but it felt off to me and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Why would she work so hard on something for my boyfriend and no one else? And it just felt like such a personal gift that I could never match, and I just feel like she totally took away from what I gave him. I did try talking to my boyfriend about it and how I thought it was weird. He said he didn't think it was weird at all because she has always been closer to him than the other brothers. Well, shouldn't she be closer to her husband than him? He didn't get one. I don't know. I asked him if he would give it back to her, saying he can't accept it, and he refused and said I'm being ridiculous. I just feel like a woman doesn't make such a personal gift for a guy unless they see them as something more. It was just how I was raised, and I hate feeling this way about something like this. I talked to my mom and sister, and they both agreed that it wasn't right and that this was most likely the beginning of her trying to push me out. I just can't help but feel like she was trying to make him like her more than me because he said she has never given him anything before and this is our first Christmas together. I just don't know what to think, or am I overthinking this completely? Well, OP, in my opinion, yeah, you kinda are being ridiculous. It's just a Christmas gift that she made thinking of your boyfriend, but not in a romantic way. She's known him for 5.5 years. And what could she gain from pushing you out? Unless you're leaving something out of the story that makes her not like you for whatever reason that we don't know about. Now, just for argument's sake, let's follow the line that this is some sort of slight to your person, right? So, have you seen her flirting with him or talking with him in secret or, bashing you behind your back or something like that he might tell you or share with you? If the answer is no, then I'd suggest to move on. As a side note, I'd say be careful with that echo chamber that your mom and sister are creating. You say you feel this way because it doesn't sit right regarding to how you were raised, so of course your mom and sister are gonna see exactly the same picture. That's definitely giving you no perspective. Just be careful, OP. And what do you guys think about this situation? Do you think OP's mom and sister are right, or do you think OP should just let it go? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Deleted says, you're reading way too much into this. As someone else says, there may be a backstory on an inside joke there that you don't know about. Also, it's entirely possible that she's working on gifts for everyone else. If it's as nice as you say, it probably takes a while to make, so maybe she ran out of time. Quote, I talked to my mom and sister and they both agreed that it wasn't right and that this was most likely the beginning of her trying to push me out. End quote. What the F? She's happily married to his brother and gave him the gift in front of her husband and you think she's trying to push you out? That's a master level insecurity there. And OP responds, I guess the time thing is a good way to look at it. It does look very professional. I don't sew, so I really don't know how long something like that takes. And that's just how my mom has raised us. She has always been very protective of our father. I try not to be her because I know she can be a bit much at times, but this situation just completely threw me off. And it's honestly hard to see his other siblings' significant others fitting into the family unit so well while I'm just the outcast. Brazen Rum Raisin says, I think that what you're really angry about is that you feel like she took away from what you gave him. I think you and your family sound a bit paranoid. I very much doubt a plushie is going to be the beginning of the end. Her husband was excited about it too. I've made soft toys and plushies before. If you're good at it, it really isn't as much work as you seem to think it is, even for a lovely one. Maybe she was just doing a nice thing? At the end of the day, she is a member of his family. You aren't. He's known her for a long time and they get on. If she wants to make a family member a nice present, why should his new girlfriend get in the way of it? Asking him to give it back to her saying he can't accept it was really out of line. I think you need to take a look at yourself and try to raise your self-esteem. This kind of thinking isn't normal at all and it will cause you nothing but problems. Being intimidated because your relationship is the shortest, being jealous over a cuddly toy, thinking everyone is out to get you, that she must be attracted to him, etc. All of that is super unhealthy. Also, stop listening to your family regarding these matters. It sounds like they just wind you up further. There are lots of ways to improve your self-esteem, lots of resources online, and you can also work through your issues with a therapist. You are completely and utterly overreacting. And OP responds, thank you for this. Really, I think you're right, and the second half of your comment really is an eye-opener. I have a lot of thinking to do. Wemble Wobble says, you are overreacting. Being a jealous, paranoid, and controlling girlfriend will drive him away. You've been together 6 months and you're already trying to determine what presents he's allowed to receive from his family? That's crazy. You are the one making up a wedge to drive between you and his family, not her. Calm down, it's a stuffed animal, not a BJ, which is probably what her husband got and why she didn't gift it in front of you. And Opie responds, it wouldn't have bothered me if it was from his actual family. It's just that it's the significant others of his brother that bothered me. If his actual sister made it for him, I would never in a million years have asked him to return the gift, but this is his sister-in-law, so not directly family. His one brother has been in a long-term relationship for 7 years. They do not plan to marry, yet this sister-in-law has been with her husband for 5.5 years. She hasn't been with the family for as long as the other one who isn't married, so how is she more of their family than the other girl who has been around longer? Just because of documents? I always viewed marriage as the couple making their own family unit. Alright, well the community was pretty concise in the message to tell OP that she needs to stop this, that this is ridiculous and she is overreacting. Now, before we move on with the update, just remember that up here is a playlist full of other stories that you might want to check out after this video ends. Now let's continue with the update. I went a few weeks without saying anything else about the subject because everyone on here seemed to disagree with my side of things. Then, last Saturday, he told me he was going to be spending the day at his brother's house just to hang out. We generally make plans on Saturdays, but I hadn't had the chance to make plans officials with him yet. I just figured it was implied at this point. So I asked him if I would be allowed to go over there with him. That's when he told me that it was just going to be a day with him and his brother. So I reminded him that since it is his brother's house, then most likely his wife will be present too, so I didn't really see how it was fair. Ultimately, it blew up and I told him everything, brought up the gift again, and just how I feel intimidated by everyone and feel like his sister-in-law is on some pedestal or something because she gets to be there and I don't. I also mentioned how I just feel like I was being pushed out by her and that the gift made me uneasy. He was frustrated and told me that he was going to his brother's and that he would talk to me later. So I spent all morning Saturday on edge and just completely jealous. Then, around 1 p.m., his sister-in-law called me, I guess he gave her my number, and asked me if I was free to meet her for coffee. I was confused, but agreed to have coffee with her. I expected it to be awkward. At the coffee shop, she wasted no time telling me that my boyfriend had told her everything. She said she wanted to meet me because she wanted me to see her face and see that she was genuine in everything she had to say. She went on to explain that she had no feelings for him in the way I was implying to him and no intention of pushing me out. She said her original plan was to make the plushie for all of the boys since they all play the game, but it took her way too much time to make one, so she wanted to give it to her favorite brother-in-law. I questioned why not her husband, and she said that she lives with him and he knew she was making it in the first place and that she could make one for him anytime and just wanted that one to be a surprise Christmas present. I told her that I still kinda thought it was inappropriate since he was in a relationship now, and she just paused and didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then she asked me if there was anything else that was bothering me. I used today as an example and said it bothered me that he went to her house and told me I couldn't come because it was a day with his brother, even though she would obviously be there. She told me that it is a day with his brother and that just because she lives in the house doesn't change that. She said that she kept to herself doing her own things while the boys played video games with each other, and that my boyfriend came to her when she was in the kitchen to talk to her about me briefly. I didn't say anything. I still felt a bit jealous, but I just didn't know what to say. She then asked me if I had anything else I wanted to get out, and I declined. She said that she didn't want to part ways without giving me some advice. She went on to say that she thinks I'm a very nice girl and that the entire family feels that way, and wanted to remind me that all of the spouses and significant others were new to the family at one point in time. She went on about how it takes time to feel a closeness with everyone and that she went through it too. She then said that she didn't want to come across the wrong way, but that I needed to work hard on my insecurities or else I would lose my boyfriend. She just went on and on saying how I am so nice and that I am ruining a good thing by letting myself overthink these things and by being so insecure. She told me to really think about how I am acting over his own sister-in-law interacting with him. And that's when my stupid brain made me say, well, if you were to get a divorce, then you wouldn't be his sister-in-law and you would just be another woman in his life. That was the moment it finally hit me just how crazy I was being. She gave me this look and said, well, we aren't getting divorced, so... And I just felt completely embarrassed and apologized. She then very nicely told me that on second thought, she thinks I might not be ready for a relationship at all and that I really need to work on myself. That was pretty much the end of it and we parted ways. I spent the rest of the weekend crying and hating myself. My boyfriend didn't call me or text me at all. Finally, on Monday, he asked if he could come over. So he came over and asked how it went with his sister-in-law. And I had figured he knew everything, but said that all she said was that he needed to talk to me. Turns out, he didn't talk to me all weekend because he was angry with how I acted about him going to his brother's house and then bringing up the gift again, and he just needed some space. He told me that he wasn't going to put up with this type of behavior and that it is putting way too much unnecessary drama into his life. As I'm sure you are probably guessing, he proceeded to break up with me. He told me he really cared about me, but he just can't imagine how bad it will get in the future if I'm already acting like this with people who are his family. I begged him not to leave and that I would do everything to change, and he just wouldn't budge. I haven't heard from him since, and I feel like I had my heart ripped out and stomped on. It hurts so bad, and I know this is all my fault. I have my mom and sister telling me how it's good riddance and how he broke up with me so that he wouldn't have anything holding him back from his sister-in-law, and this just broke me. I am so done with my family and the way they put these toxic ideas in my head. I'm just done. So yeah, not a happy update. From here I am planning on working on myself and hope to someday maybe convince him to give me another chance. I don't know why I wrote this update. It just feels good to get it out, I guess, and further convinces me I need to change. Well, OP, sure you say it's not a happy update, but in my opinion, it's a bittersweet one. More bitter than sweet, but still. There is learning and there is growth on your part. You popped that toxic family bubble, and you are convinced and ready to put in the work to be the better version of yourself. I think that's a positive. Sure, your relationship ended, but you came with the positive out of it. Just do yourself one favor. Don't try to improve yourself for him to give you another chance. Improve yourself for you. All the best in the future, OP, and thank you so much for sharing. Now, let's move on to the mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user VirtualMeeting113. Don't tell anyone you're leaving. I once wound up working for a company because it bought up small competitors, including my employer, across multiple states, and then smushed them all together into one big firm with lots of clients. Each of us had different retention bonuses to stop us from just walking out. The whole thing was a crap show, so the CEO appointed a new VP to lead my division, Big Boss, and a new HR director. Big Boss was really interested in my specialism. He told me face to face I was doing all the right things for promotion, big things, etc. But others started demanding big pay rises to stay, and Big Boss was pretty pissed about this because it screwed up his finance metrics. He gave in a couple of times and then wrote a memo saying no pay rises were permitted outside of the annual review. HR director told everyone they wanted honest opinions about what was wrong and how to fix them, then started sniping people who'd told him the truth and blaming them for the issue. Great start. Big shock, I didn't get the promotion. A couple of insiders told me he'd just badmouthed everyone who was up for promotion to justify not offering any. I met him and said that if I wasn't promoted, maybe I wasn't a good fit and should leave. But he disagreed, said I was a great asset and that he'd figured something out. My manager came back with his offer. It pushed the retention bonus further into the future, added some withheld stock perks and pay rises that would build over multiple years, and Big Boss would support me for my promotion next year. Basically nothing now, but maybe in the future. The shrug as my manager handed it to me said everything. Big Boss then got a surprise opportunity to make a sale personally at a client he knew and impress our CEO. We had no experience in the area, but I had a reputation as being versatile and I was available, so he asked me to head up a group of 4 contractors and make it look like a joined-up expert team from our company. I decided this was a dead end, and given that my retention bonus was due, although no idea when they would actually cut me a check, I agreed to take a similar job at an unexciting but stable competitor. I wrote Big Boss to give him my 2 weeks notice, said it had been a pleasure working with him and what did he want me to do. It was standard in our industry to get people off the premises as soon as possible, especially when joining a competitor, so I was a bit surprised when he told me to carry on at the client and don't tell them you're leaving. Truth was, he had nobody to replace me with. Apparently, he then went to HR director and my manager and lost his crap when it turned out I never actually signed his new retention offer. He tried to blame a couple of people for telling me not to sign, which wasn't true, and upset them as well. HR director then met me for an exit interview, and as I'd heard, was pretty stressed because so many people were leaving and their remit was to retain staff. I'd told them everything was amazing and I loved the company, but this was a huge opportunity. Then they said that because I was quitting, I wouldn't be getting my retention bonus or performance bonuses. It's just industry standard, they said. I explained that the wording was very clear. I had met every requirement, and they said it didn't matter because that wasn't what the words meant, and if you want to argue terms, get an attorney. So I stayed with the client for the next 2 weeks. I told the contractors I was leaving and asked what help they wanted, but they wanted to promote themselves directly with the client, so were happier if I kept out of their way. I just met colleagues for coffee and caught up on old times, talked about my new employer, what would be their final straw, and so on. A couple of days before I was due to finish, the client lead asked me if we could help out with something. Well, I couldn't tell them I was leaving, so I replied, "Unfortunately, Big Boss has said I am not permitted to discuss my future with you, so you'll need to ask him directly." The client immediately knew what was happening and was fuming that he'd kept them in the dark. Even more when they found out no replacement had been identified. Then, as HR director had requested, I took an employment attorney friend out for lunch. She was laughing her ass off when she saw the contracts and said they were some of the worst worded she'd ever seen. I was totally right. They owed the bonuses and HR director was just hoping I gave up. She helped me draft some legal docs, tacked on a bunch of additional fees she reckoned we could argue I was owed, and I sent them off. I left the company without ever speaking to Big Boss or HR director again. I bumped into one of the contractors in a parking lot and he told me the project had completely imploded. They replaced me with another contractor a month after I left, but by that point they stopped working collaboratively and were competing with each other to win contracts directly with the client. Two of them got terminated for performance issues, another quit, and a client decided not to continue using my old company, so they took the only remaining specialist contractor directly. I caught up with a former manager for coffee, and they said Big Boss became increasingly paranoid about all the people resigning and started trying to run off his loyalty tests to identify disloyal staff, which of course made even more people resign. Allegedly, the CEO was getting angry because the financials and sales metrics were getting worse, and the big target client he'd heard about had turned into a huge embarrassment. Eventually, I received a satisfactory offer from the company's law firm. It wasn't a big settlement, but I was so happy that I'd seen it through. My attorney friend said she knew the firm, and it had probably cost triple the amount I'd asked for in legal fees. I wish I could have seen Big Boss's face signing that check. I checked LinkedIn a few months later, and HR director had been terminated. One colleague still at the company said it was official because there weren't enough permanent employees to justify them staying. Big Boss then vanished a few weeks later. His office was just emptied and nobody spoke about him again. I still work in the same city, but haven't seen either of them again. If I did, well, I was told to keep working, not to tell the client what was happening, and to get an attorney. So that's exactly what I did. Well, nothing else to add to that, OP. You did exactly what they told you to do. Good for you. Thanks for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.